This is Kate Baconsale. You're listening to Baconsale.
There must be a guy like me on every podcast in America. I'm the guy who can over-research things. Cryptids, a bag of cereal if that's your thing, an old commercial jingle for a bottle of Pepsi. Dang near anything within reason. So when Nicole D. Hale came to me in 2021 and asked me to talk about Stephen King, I told her, no problem.
Nice. Thank you for joining us, Morgan Freeman. That was great.
Thank you. Welcome to Baconsale. I'm Joel.
I'm Kent.
And I'm Zack.
We'd like to thank you for listening to our last show, our musical memory of concerts show.
Yeah, it's real fun.
Yeah.
Thank you to so many listener who came out and responded. It was all these people putting out lists and experiences, and honestly, hey, I was at that show.
Yeah,
kind of strange.
Yeah,
like Shane Hyatt says, I was at the X96 Bash show in 2002, and yes, that thing that Goldfinger did was so bad.
Yes, it was.
And I saw the girl with the eye thing. And if he had a chance, he'd go see the Killers.
Why weren't we all friends back then?
Right? There's so many examples of this throughout. It just goes to show, it's a gathering place.
Yes.
And then you can later on go, oh yeah, I was at. I mean, Kent, you and I have attended multiple concerts and not even really known.
Friends.
Yeah, exactly. And then I want to give a big shout out to Ryan Farron, who noticed a little Easter egg in the image. He says, I just noticed the creepy person over Kenny 3DD's right shoulder. Is that the Scream Queen? Oh, wait, never mind. That's the girl who got hurt in the mash on the
I had to throw it in there.
Why do we keep bringing up the eye thing?
Yeah.
Out of all the happy stuff we talked about.
Multiple people did. But yeah, again, just thank you so much, listener, for just coming out. I would really recommend jump onto that social media, comment if you'd like, but also, go look at the other lists. I can guarantee that somebody in the comment section attended a concert that you also did.
Most likely.
Yeah. And it's just, there's been so much overlap. It's been crazy. So thank you, everyone, for playing
And
along.
I want to thank you guys for your list for passwords.
Yeah.
Wait, who's that? Who's that?
What? Huh?
That's right. We have a guest here in the Bacon Cave with us, Nicole D. Hale.
Hey, Nicole.
Hi.
It's funny how I
Welcome
can never
back.
just say Nicole. It's like I have to say Nicole D. Hale.
Well, okay, funny thing. I lived in a very, very, very small town. There was another Nicole Hale that lived right around the corner from me for a couple of years. So that's why I have to put the D in there.
It couldn't be Nikki at all. It had to be Nicole.
I'm not a Nikki. Do I look like a Nikki?
You could be.
She looks like a Nicole DK. Go Knights Go.
But yes, she's a member
right
of...
now, I'm Knick Knack Patty Whack.
Yeah.
Knick
Yes,
Knack
you are.
40 Wax.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Wow.
So.
she is a patron of Baconsale. She's on the Bacon Council, and we thank you for being here. We appreciate
thank
your patronage,
you.
and we like having you around.
Oh, I'll just stick here. Then.
I'll
take cruise and we'll just
Cruise.
But also, speaking of patrons, we have a patron upgrade I'd like to talk about.
Hey.
Do tell.
Rocky and Steph have upped their
Oh,
patronage.
didn't they just join?
They've been tier 1 for a while now.
Oh, I'm thinking of
Decided
somebody
to
else.
become I am the listener tier. So they will
Wow.
have
Oh, yeah,
they're gonna get the
that's
shout
what I
out at the
saw.
end of each show. They get some merch, and they get to request one show topic and possibly even join us on the episode.
How fun. They're great.
Yeah, I've had some interaction with them recently. They're friends of the Crumps, and really just seem like really nice people from everything I've been talking to them about. And they just got a Baconception shirt, I believe.
Oh, awesome.
Nice.
I
If I
just bought
remember
one
right.
too.
I need one of those as well.
And more t-shirts coming, I promise. We've been saying it for a long time, but it's real this time. More t-shirts
Is it?
coming.
Yes, but also, listener, we want to talk about something that there's a special thing
Oh,
coming
yeah.
up.
We have something to announce, kind of.
Yes. Well, not
Joel,
entirely.
are you pregnant?
Not again. I'm good. But
I am getting married.
we're getting close to the spooky season, everybody.
Yeah, we are.
Our favorite time of the year where everything's going to be a little bit spookier here in the Bacon Cave. We've already put some appendages up here.
I'm
as we
sorry,
mentioned
I'll
on
put some makeup
on the pic of it. But we are going to be starting to talk about Halloween-related things. Not necessarily horror, scary all the time, but it's going to be Halloween-related things for probably the next 4 episodes
We're
or so.
sorry and you're welcome.
It's one of our favorite times of the year, and we're going to be doing a giveaway as well. So it's an exciting time for us, and it's going to be an exciting time for you. We hope you'll join us for the October season because we always have a great time.
Yes.
But that's not what we're talking about today. What are we talking about today, Zach?
The complete works of Stephen King.
Wait a minute.
Was that Vincent Price?
Wait a minute. You're telling me that last year, Nicole came on the show just before October and did a cryptid show, which was kind of Halloweenish. And this year, Nicole's joining us on a show just before October and also an episode that is kind of Halloweenish.
More like Nicole Sneak Hale.
That's
Yes.
me.
It's almost like you guys really love Halloween.
I love Halloween. I love for
We
Halloween.
only got 4 episodes. We want to get one more in there.
Please.
I've been planning my costume for 5 months now.
Although, guys, I also found a pattern. I know patterns are a little bit creepy, especially around this time of year, but 2 shows ago, we talked about princes. The last show, we talked about queen quite a bit. In this show, we're talking about a king.
Oh, nice.
Whoa.
Right?
Next week, we'll talk Joker.
Oh, yeah, there you go. You can throw him out of the deck. It's fine.
Wow, that's kind of eerie.
Yeah.
But yes, this is a subject that Kent and Nicole
We're quite passionate about.
Are pretty well
honestly.
versed in.
Yes. I hope so. And I hope we can communicate that, because what we're going to try to do is just summarize everything Stephen King into
Oh my gosh,
an hour and 36 minutes. Right? I'm gonna time it right now, an hour and 36 minutes.
I'm holding you to that.
Please bless.
We'll see.
Less.
Because there are podcasts dedicated to Stephen King himself, and in each book we'll get an episode, but we are going to try to basically just say, hey, do you know this author at all, or are you creeped out by him? Here's a briefer course on this one.
Should we say there might be spoilers?
Yeah, we're going to but we will announce before every spoiler. We will talk about
there's
the
some
law.
things I don't think we will spoil. It's like those twists you just want to hold on to and let
Yeah.
people enjoy.
And I apologize in advance if I get a little excited. It might be a little gory.
Wait, when you get excited, it gets gory?
What's
well,
going
when
to
I talk
happen?
about Stephen King, there's some really good parts.
Joel's safe over there on the other side of the table.
You're in swinging range. Put down the sledgehammer.
Please, yeah. Jeez.
But
I forgot my sledgehammer.
Kent, Nicole, Zach, myself.
You can say Joel.
I would like to know your level of kingness when it comes to Stephen King. Like, where are you at? What's your experience with Stephen King? Like, give us a little bit of background.
I'm going to guess Zach has the least amount of King knowledge.
Oh, I read a lot of his books. Say Cheese and Die.
That's Goosebumps.
Oh, then I have no experience
R.L.
with Stephen
Stein.
King.
They're probably friends.
Yeah,
But,
I can, actually, I'll say this: I probably have seen multiple Stephen King movies without necessarily knowing they're Stephen King properties.
Yes.
So I've looked at the list and went,
Well,
"Oh, that's surprising."
You watched them and you said, this isn't very good. Oh, it's a Stephen King
Yeah, why is
adaptation.
this movie so mediocre? Oh, it's there's movies that I've seen that I go, wow, this is a really good movie, and then I find out that Stephen King hates it.
Yes.
It's like it wasn't true to his book. So that's
oh my gosh,
I've-
there's a whole list
yeah,
right
very very little connection, honestly, to like knowing about Stephen King. So
Well, and for me, I'm being a fan of horror. I've seen a lot of Stephen King movies. Like, probably doing this research for this episode, more than I realized.
I would say you grew up in the golden time where it was post a lot of his early adaptations,
Yes.
but in the 90s, there were so many TV miniseries based on Stephen King books.
Yes, and even in the late 80s, early 90s, there was a lot of Stephen King stuff happening. And so I've seen a lot of the movies, but I have not read a single book.
Why not?
I could tell you why not.
No, please do.
Because I tried to read a single book, and it was quite profane.
Just one book in the world?
Well, no,
a Stephen King book.
I've never read a book in my
which
life.
book, do you remember which book it was?
It. And then I tried to read, what was another one? There was another one where I picked it up and kind of just started flipping through it and saw a couple other words that I was like, I'm not happy with that.
Yeah, I get it.
And so fairly profane in his writing, fairly graphic in his writing in regards to cis nudity and to
Gore.
violence and
Yeah.
gore. The
is
movies
not
I watch,
family-friendly.
no. And so I think I kind of watch the movies. I watch them edited a lot of times. Tame it down a bit. So that's why I haven't read any of the books, honestly.
Yeah, I think you and I grew up much the same, watching this stuff on TV, getting nightmares of stuff that we really shouldn't be watching at 10 years old.
Yes.
But then again, we were.
Exactly.
And we will talk about them during the show.
Yes.
And so I had a decent education in King adaptations, but then I always avoided the books until I was probably in my 20s, because I always thought in my teen years, like, those books are probably really rated R. Like, they're really explicit. And I always kind of thought, I don't even want to mess with it. I don't want the nightmares. But then in my 20s, I'm like, I want the nightmares. I don't know what happened. I said, I'm going to try to read some King. And then I was actually kind of disappointed because they're not quite as scary as you would imagine.
Well, we kind of talked about this before, but I just, Stephen King is one of those writers where I'm like, he has an idea and then just keeps building on it.
Yep.
And it gets weirder as it gets built on. So it's like,
because he doesn't plan ahead.
He's like, there's this town. It's a small town.
It's in Maine.
And in this town, these people start getting killed because there's a killer. And then there's also someone in the town. I'm like, okay, this is fine. And then he's like, and there's also someone in the town who's psychic. And I'm like, all right, fine. And he's like, and the psychic has a connection to a giant sea turtle that's holding up the entire earth. And I'm like, wait, okay, hold on. And he does that with every book where he keeps building, and all of a sudden it's like, where are you going with this? So I watch the movies, and the movies are these really boiled down version of his ideas, because then I read the Wikipedia summaries of his books, and I'm like, well, that possession didn't happen in this movie, and that demon alien is not in this movie.
They're all over the place.
Demon alien. I know which books he's talking about.
Yes. I'm being vague on purpose. So yeah, sorry to interrupt, but it's just every time you said the books, you were a little disappointed.
Yeah.
I kind of read the summaries of the books, and I'm like, well, that's just weird.
Yeah, for example, you expect it to be about a clown, a supernatural clown, but that is not what this clown is whatsoever.
Yes.
But we can talk about that a little bit later in the show. But Nicole, what's
Yes.
your history with Stephen King?
I remember my first Stephen King book because there was an assignment we had to do. We had to read a book about dogs.
Was this in Stage Crew? Like what
No,
class
I
gives
was-
you an assignment about Stephen King?
No, that's the thing. So I was in 6th grade.
Whoa.
This is juvie then.
And then I was just like, well, I want something a little more serious, you know? And so I went to the local library, and I saw it was in the adult reader section. I was like, oh, there's a picture of a dog. I'll go get it.
Man's best friend.
Yeah.
Now,
it's
Old
just-
Yeller is a book, too.
So it's where the red fern grows.
Yes.
Big Dan, a little lamb.
Don't even get me started on that. so, and I'm just like, okay, well, I needed a story. Well, I think it was we had to do a story about an animal. And like, oh, there's one about a dog. I could do that.
And Cujo was his name. Oh.
Cujo. I was just like, my eyes were open to a lot of different things. Like you said, there's like, I don't even know if my mom wants me to read this.
Yeah.
You felt a little dirty, right?
Yeah.
Yes, because it's intense.
It's like I said to you guys earlier. I was like, hey, I was joking around. I'm like, hey, Ken, what's that movie of Stephen King that has like the abusive parent and like adultery? And you're like, all of them. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's right. That's right.
Stephen King has a lot of tropes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and one thing that I will say in the positive here about his books is the movies don't do this as much. But one thing I respect and kind of admire, even though it's very much out there, is how he kind of weaves the books together, even in just passing reference. But like, for example, Cujo, we just brought that up. In the movie, it's just a rabid dog. But in the book, apparently there's some connection to the dog possibly being possessed by a character that was in another book or something like that. And I'm like, he does that all the time where he'll bring these characters in.
So much like as we know the popular MCU, there is a KCU. It is the King Connected Universe. And he came up with this parallel universe, which became, I would say, his most popular work. And which we'll get into that in the middle of the show. I know some people are, really excited for that. You guys won't even care.
That's the whole point.
I think you've already brought it up on the show like 7 times.
At least 7 times.
Yes.
Yes, he will pull characters, and obviously almost every town is from Maine as well.
Yes,
Mostly
Castle
Derry.
Rock.
Yeah, exactly.
Derry.
And these characters will combine to the point where Hulu even made a 2-season series based on the connected Stephen King stories. So it's really fun. There's a payoff when you're reading a book and you're like, okay, this is kind of dry. And then you're like, oh, wait, I read about a character I loved in another book. And it's rewarding as a fan. So
there's flow charts out there that you're just like, wow.
Well, and we've kind of made the joke on Baconsale before about how Stephen King is the king of setups.
Yes.
Like he builds this cool mythology and starts building it up, but doesn't stick the landing most of the time. Where he gets to the end and it's kind of like, wait, what?
He's not known for, he even in his book on writing, he even talks about his struggle with the endings.
Yeah.
I don't know if we'll get into it, but like The Mist, he really didn't have an ending for The Mist. And so when The Mist came out and they when
the story, it's a short story.
Yeah, it's a short story.
Oh, you're talking about when the movie came out.
Yeah, so there was a short story. But when the movie came out, he actually enjoyed the ending better from the movie than what he came up with.
Okay.
They call him a pantser. He's not
what?
He's not a plotter. He doesn't come up with an outline for any of his stories. He goes by the seat of his pants. He doesn't pants people at classic skating.
That's how I thought you meant.
It's all about the destination. It's all about the characters because his characters are phenomenal. And then he's like, oh, I kind of want to be done with this book. Let's throw in an explosion and the book will be over. And it becomes like a lot like Doctor Who, where there's like a Deus Ex Machina.
Yes.
Sometimes quite literally.
Yeah.
So
let's talk about the man.
Yes.
The myth, the legend, Stephen King.
So Stephen Edwin King was born on September 21st, 1947. So he's published 63 novels. He's written 200 short stories and 5 nonfiction books. And more films have been adapted from his novels than any other author.
And he's primarily known for horror, but that's not all he does.
Yeah.
Like they call him the king of horror.
Exactly. I would say his most notable works aren't actually horror stories.
I would say that's true. In fact, you might be surprised, listener, when we talk about those movies, what movies are actually his.
Yeah. So he was born to Donald and Nellie Ruth King, but his dad, Donald, was not a super great guy. He actually left when Stephen was 2 years old. And so the mom raised Stephen and his older brother, David, on her own.
This explains some storylines.
Oh, well, there's even more in his past that goes into that. So as a kid, he actually witnessed one of his friends get struck by a train and die.
That sounds like a movie I know of his.
Right. But he actually claims that he has no memory of the event. He kind of just walked home in a daze and then was told about it later. Like, are you okay? He's like, why? What happened?
Wow.
Even though it does come into play, obviously, in some of his stories. So when he was a kid, he was trying to figure out what he wanted to do, and he found a paperback book of short stories by H.P. Lovecraft. And he read the story, The Lurker in the Shadows. And he's like, that's it. I'm going to write books.
He's going to be a lurker in the shadows?
Basically, kind of.
Yeah.
I'm going to write books, and I'm going to focus on horror. So he started collecting EC comics. So back in the day, there was like Tales from the Crypt.
You say EC or DC?
EC comics.
Just making sure.
So real low budget horror stories. And so he started reading those all the time, and he started submitting stories to them, which they would then draw, and he won a few awards from that, even as like 18 years old. Like, so he already kind of found his niche.
I think I got paid $35 for the first time, and he's like, this is what I want to do.
Do we know what his first short story was? First published short story? Is it a classic? Do people know it?
It's probably in Creep Show, let's be honest. It actually might be The Raft, I feel. But anyways, so he graduated from the University of Maine in 1970 with a Bachelor of Arts in English, and he met his wife there, Tabitha Spruce, in 1971. And they have 3 children. Sorry, this is all background stuff before we get to the good stuff. But they have 3 kids. Naomi.
Yeah, marriage and kids isn't the good stuff. Let's talk about the horror.
Let's rush to the marriage part. Naomi is his oldest daughter. Owen, his son, is also a writer. And Joe Hill doesn't go by the name King, probably to kind of disassociate himself from the King name.
But the thing is, they always collaborate.
They do.
And so it's just like, well, people know that you're a king's son.
Right. And Joe Hill is actually a very famous author at this point as well.
He does a great series called Lock and Key.
It's also a notorious criminal here in Utah, but
you're right.
Old school, yeah.
Yeah. So we talked about like how he's submitting stories to these magazines. Well, he started writing books, and not a lot of confidence. And actually, the 4th book he wrote was Carrie.
Oh.
And he started writing that book. And
wait, what was the first book he wrote?
He threw it away. All these books he never got published.
Oh,
his first 3 books never got published.
Well, let's go back to the Dark Tower. When he was 19, he started writing. He's like, I want to be like Tolkien. He's like, I want to write an epic story like Tolkien, like Lord of the Rings. So he started at 19, and it didn't quite go off because he's like, I want to make this perfect. So he kind of pushed it off to his side, and then he started doing other writing. So remember that 19 is a very important number.
Remember the name Dark Tower because it will come up again.
Okay. So then he publishes Carrie.
He publishes Carrie. It's his 4th book. So this was published in 1973. The movie was adapted in 1976. Very famous movie for reasons, honestly, for the prom scene.
Yeah.
That's
for
pretty
the last
much it.
20 minutes of the movie.
Yeah.
Actually, it was Tabitha that saved Carrie from a fire.
Oh, because he was going to throw it away?
He was going to actually burn it.
Oh, wow.
From what I remember. He
Yeah.
was going to burn it,
he threw it in the
right?
garbage. She's like, this is no good.
Well, and I've heard that Mr. King had some issues with self-admitted has some issues with substance abuse, alcoholism.
It didn't happen until, a couple of years
writing.
into his career, but he was addicted to pretty much everything, and it's some weird stuff as well.
Well, he said that, like Cujo, for example, he doesn't even remember writing.
Yep.
He doesn't remember.
He doesn't remember writing at all because that was during that time in life when he was addicted to everything.
It's severe alcoholism, but then also cocaine, Xanax, Valium, cold and flu medicine.
Wow.
Like Robitussin, mouthwash.
Hasn't done
Maybe he
that.
was just congested and had good hygiene.
For about 20 years.
I've had a cold that lasted that long.
And it wasn't until his family and friends staged an intervention, and he actually got sober in the late 80s.
He had a major accident in 1999. And
We'll get there.
Yeah.
Oh, we're not there yet?
Yeah,
No.
he got addicted to opioids again, but he it was 2 years later, I think it was. Something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
So I do want to talk about some of his earlier books, even though on this episode we will be talking about our favorite works, like recommended books, our least favorite adaptations, and our favorite adaptations as
Film
well.
adaptations. Yeah, movie adaptations.
And so, but in the 70s, he was on a roll. So he did Carrie, Salem's Lot 2 years later, The Shining 2 years after that, The Stand 1 year after that. So his 70s are stacked.
And these are short books, right? Like these are all like,
How long is The Stand?
Goose
Do
Let's
we
see,
know?
I have got this. Now, if you want the uncut version, which Stephen King wanted.
I'm all about director's cuts.
Okay, director's
Of
cut.
books?
Yeah.
Unless it's Les Mis.
The page length is 1,152 pages. And if you took time to read it, it usually would take about 32 hours to read it. if
Wow.
you read
That's
it
like
straight.
one video game.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're beasts. And that
Just
is,
thick
it's,
books.
I remember I was so proud when I finished The Stand. I'm like, I read my first over 1,000 page book. I was so excited about that.
that's his writing style. Like, I'm kind of amazed at authors that can write a book every year. And I'm like, who's writing these books for you? But he has a method where he will write at least 2,000 words a day. And he won't stop writing. Like, basically, it's his homework assignment. And it may be bad. But he says, I have to write. I have to be in the habit. And that's every single day. And he actually
Well, he does
I've
that
heard
even when he's
I-
not writing a book?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I've
well, he's
heard-
always writing a book.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I've heard the rumor where he actually clocks in. And he clocks out for lunch. And he, just like if you were at a normal Joe Blow job, And so that's what he does. He makes sure that he is on
Every
the
day.
clock.
And you can see that in some of his stories, even at some parts of his career where he said, I ran out of stories. Like, there's some solid decades where he wasn't as good or as successful. Maybe that's relative because there could be people with favorites. But he actually gave some writing advice. On Writing is a very good book to
It
read,
is an
by the
awesome
way.
book. And
The book is called On
On
Writing.
Writing. Yeah,
and
Stephen
it's
King on
also
Writing.
like his history as well. It's like a biography, somewhat an educational thing. But he even says, I want you to do this, even though I don't do it myself.
Yeah.
He even says, I don't follow these methods, but for you to make it as a writer, this is what you need to do.
Yeah, he actually says read and write for 4 to 6 hours a day.
Who has time to do that?
Well,
Yeah,
if you're
but
a
he says
professional
if you
author-
don't have the time to do that, you won't become a good writer. Kind of crazy.
If you see a picture, he has a library in his basement. It's insane. All the books that he has read, and it's crazy.
And then he uses them in his own stories.
Basically.
I found out that he did this program where it was called Dollar Baby, and it was a thing where he would sell not the rights, but he would allow student filmmakers or up and coming filmmakers to adapt any of his short stories for $1. And it was non-commercial
wow,
reasons,
okay.
like it was for film
It
festivals
was
and stuff like that.
because he wanted to help future film writers.
Yeah, he said, I've been given so much of my life, I want to give some of it back, and this is a way for them to build the resume.
And he actually has
Jeez.
them in his library, but I would love to see like these student artists, see
Yeah.
how they adapt. I would love to
Well,
see
one
it.
of them was Frank Darabont.
Yeah.
He actually purchased
fantastic.
one of his
Who's
movies.
directed some of his best movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's why they're called Dollar Babies, because you have to at least spend some money to get those rights.
Yeah.
How many books of Stephen King's have you read?
29.
29 books?
Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't checked it out. I think I would probably have read about 75%.
Wow.
Okay.
I
And
would
they're
say.
so long.
They are, but I have a lot of time at work.
He's a little bit
to
like
listen.
Charles Dickens, where he gets really into the details
Mm-hmm.
about things rather than the plot itself.
Right.
He eventually gets there, and they can be really good stories, but each book could have a third cut from it and be fine. So in 1999, there's a really pivotal moment in
Mm-hmm.
his life and almost caused his death. So this is the infamous car accident that he was involved in. Like, Joel, have you ever heard about this at all?
Yes, I have. Yes.
Yeah. And
it's
it was
something like from one of his stories. It's just like, how did this happen?
well, and it kind of became one of his stories as well. So he's out for a walk in June of 1999 along Main State Route 5, and there's a minivan just coming down, and this guy got distracted. He said there was a dog moving around in the back of the minivan, and Stephen King was on the side of the road. He got hit by this van, and he flew about 14 feet into a
Wait,
depression.
he wasn't even in a car?
Nope, he's going for a walk.
I thought he was
He's
in a
going for a
car
walk.
accident.
Side of the road.
Wow.
So he feels that it was very, very malicious of this driver, or there were bigger reasons for him getting hit by this car. I mean, he pressed charges. The driver, pled guilty to a lesser charge, still had to do like 6 months in jail, life suspended for a year. Like, it was heavy. Like, he went after this guy pretty hard.
Well, his whole leg had to be like restructured. I mean, he had an outside metal cast that was pinned to his hip. I mean,
Wow.
it was close to not surviving at that point. So.
And it's actually at this point, like, it's kind of a worry because once you undergo those surgeries, you're going to be put on some medication, right? And he's avoided that for so long, and it kind of brought him back to this kind of dark place. But actually, Stephen King and his lawyer, they purchased the van that hit him for $1,500. And they say or I think the lawyer says, it's so that no one on eBay buys the van that hit Stephen King.
Oh.
Stephen King bought it so he could destroy the van.
Wow.
Yeah, and he was actually mad. He's like, I want to keep it in my house. I'm going to destroy this. Like, and I've heard urban legends that he actually did keep the van because
I've
they
heard
said it
that
was
too.
destroyed.
Yeah, I've heard
officially.
that he's kept it.
I heard
too.
he writes in the van. He goes in
probably
there with a
does.
typewriter.
You know what? I wouldn't be surprised to tell you the truth.
Dude. This accident, I would say, changed his writing. I don't know if for the better or worse.
If this is going to sound morbid, and I apologize,
Go
but
on.
it is a Stephen King show. If he were to have perished in 1999, what would we have missed out on?
The last 2 books of the Dark Tower.
It's basically his Game of Thrones, his Lord of the Rings. Some might say then that would be fine. A made-up ending might be better than the actual ending.
We have a debate about that.
Yeah, I'm sure we do. In fact, maybe if you guys don't mind, we can jump right into the weeds of the Dark Tower.
Okay.
But we're going to try to make it relevant for everyone out there.
I swear you've talked about this on Baconsale before, but
We have
I can't think
reviewed
of
the
what.
Dark Tower movie back in 2017.
Okay, that's probably why. Because I was like, I couldn't remember why we talked about this.
That's the very accurate one with Idris Elba
Yeah.
and Matthew McConaughey.
I heard it was
Somehow.
like a shot-for-shot
Yeah.
remake of the
Stop
book.
that
Yeah.
right now.
You know what? Matthew McConaughey, I thought, was perfectly cast as the Man in Black. I thought
He's
okay,
fine. The script is horrible. He was
yeah.
fine.
Yeah, he
So this is 8 novels, 4,250 pages altogether.
You say 8 novels?
8 novels.
Okay.
And they were published all throughout his career. The first one, honestly, is just this Western of
And
the
it's the
main
smallest
character.
out of all of them.
Yeah, the main character, it's a cowboy, and his name is Roland Deschain.
Idris
And he's-
Elba.
Yeah, no. Basically, it's Clint Eastwood back in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Oh, okay.
That is
The
what-
writer with no name kind of
Yes.
thing?
He bases the character off of him, and he's a gunslinger. But this world, and it seems like the Old West, this world is not our world.
the world has moved on.
It's a post-apocalyptic world, and gunslingers, even though he looks like a cowboy, are knights of that world.
I always compare it to, like, let's say Star Wars. It's in a future galaxy far, far away.
Go on, yeah.
But somehow it's in the future, but it looks like it's desolated, so it almost feels like it's in the past.
Now, if I may, in the movie, it's a whole thing where that's a different dimension from our world.
Yes.
Is that the same as the books?
Yes.
Or is it our world that has
Yes.
become decimated?
Imagine there was a door in the middle of the woods, and you could look at both sides of the door, but you opened it, and all of a sudden you saw a desert in front of you. A Beetlejuice thing,
Okay,
for
yeah.
example.
Yeah, Sandworms.
That would be that parallel world that you were seeing that Roland is
I think
traveling
that was
in.
Saturn, but okay.
Yeah, oh, was it Saturn?
I think he said Saturn.
In Beetlejuice?
I'm pretty sure he
With
said Saturn.
sandworms?
I'm pretty sure.
There are sandworms in Saturn.
I'm going
on
to check.
Saturn.
I'll check. Don't worry.
Okay.
Save for a
the
Beetlejuice
thing
show.
is with Dark Tower, it's so hard to summarize it because when I tell people, I'm like, if you like a genre, it's in here. It's a Western. It's sci-fi. It's fantasy. It's got romance. It's got definitely horror elements in it. It's got a little bit of everything.
And it's a big road trip story. This is, without trying to take a ring to Mount Doom to destroy it, it is his story of a fellowship, or quartet as they're called in the book. Of these,
what?
Quartet.
Quartet.
It's a group of friends linked by destiny.
Okay.
So Ka is what binds everyone together. Quartet is the singular group that is bound to the Ka.
Yes.
Okay.
But I want to talk about some of the connections that King takes from other popular works.
Okay,
For
let's see-
example,
we're going to try to do this here.
in book 5, spoiler alert, 5, 6, 7, 8, if you care about Wolves of the Kala, it feels like Magnificent 7, but the things, the creatures that are attacking the town and always kind of take it over every year or so, they look like Doctor Doom, but they have lightsabers and snitches. And the snitches are exploding. They're called sneeches in the book, but they're exploding snitches. So they'll throw them at you, and your head will explode, torn flesh and everything.
Wow.
But they also have a lot of Wizard of Oz
Yes.
references as well.
Yeah, for example, they have to wear the ruby slippers to get past the Emerald City.
Yeah, it's
You're sure he's not doing substance abuse now?
Kind of, yeah.
yeah.
Because that's just weird.
So he takes from popular culture, but also this is the series that ties all of his books together. There is a main character that joins the group in book 5, the one we just discussed, and it's Father Callahan, who is a main character in Salem's Lot.
Okay.
Basically stumbles into this desert world
But
and joins the fellowship.
I guess my question is, this all comes fairly later in his career, and then he's tying it all together. Do you think this is a plan all along, or do you think he's like, this will be fun?
It's a little bit of everything.
Okay.
There's some early references to the Dark Tower, but in some fantasy books that he wrote early on. and then stuff that creeps back around even to books. Now that the Dark Tower has finished, it's done. He's still making reference that all roads lead to the tower.
Okay.
So, for example, and this is early on, The Shining was published well before the first Dark Tower book, and he uses the shine, right? Which is the ability that you have. But there's a boy that's in the Fellowship named Jake. He and Danny Torrance are actually Spider-Verse characters together. They're basically the same person in a different parallel universe. The Stand is very pivotal.
Yes.
People know The Stand is his singular over 1,000-page epic.
It's a big... Is that his longest book?
Yeah.
I believe so.
Yes, it is. It's, the basic good versus evil book. So
The antagonist in The Stand, his name is Randall Flagg. If you've seen the TV episode or the TV show, he's kind of the devil.
Yes.
Right? And Randall Flagg is also a initial antagonist in the Dark Tower series. So you can hate him twice. And it's like I said, it's rewarding for fans because if you're like, oh, I hated to see that character quote unquote die in this story, he shows up in another story. And it is a very, very good villain.
see, I have completed the Dark Tower 13 times now. And
The whole series?
Hold on. 4,250 pages.
Well, okay, I've read it twice. I've listened to it. So
Still,
every
that's time.
Every year at work, I'm working Christmas at the post office. It is drilling work. So that's what I do because most podcasts are on hiatus. Everyone's off on Christmas. And so I'm like, this is my thing I do every year. I listen to the Dark Tower series. And every time I listen to it, I'm like, oh, there's that reference. There's a new reference.
So because you've read it so many times, I'm going to ask you to synopsize
Okay.
the Dark Tower series.
Wait, are we doing the Dark Tower show or are we doing the Stephen King show?
But
we spent the last 48 minutes
it's one and
on
the
Dark
same.
Tower.
So Roland, the gunslinger, what is his goal?
Who's the good guy?
Why is it called the Dark Tower? What is his goal throughout the series,
Okay,
Nicole?
his whole journey is to get to the Dark Tower because he feels
A
like
literal Dark Tower,
Dark
like
Tower.
Isengard kind of stuff.
Yes.
And it looks just like that.
Okay.
Yeah, and so his whole journey is to try to find this Dark Tower because if he finds the tower, he's going to find all the answers to what is going on, what's happening, where are these other worlds coming from. It's the answer to it's the be all of be all. So,
It's the Wizard of Oz. That's what she's going there to get the answers, right?
Yeah.
They're going to the Emerald City
Yes.
to find the
yeah.
wizard.
Yeah, that's
Precisely.
That's actually yeah. And so why he's on this journey, he picks up his quartet. So in
His group, his fellowship.
If I'm going to explain it, imagine you can see the Tower of Isengard, Joel,
Okay.
and it looks like it's 50 miles away.
Okay.
And you're driving towards it, but it always stays that
It
same
always
distance
stays-
away.
yeah.
And it's frustrating. And you read these books and you're like, you've been traveling for so long. These books just keep going until Stephen King wants to get there. And once again, great characters. It's rewarding, I think, for someone like Nicole. I've only ever read it once. I don't know if I could go back to it having done it once.
So the ending was not satisfying to you, which kind of tainted the rest of the
I mean,
series.
it's over 4,000 pages. Before we get into the movies, which I think most people listening have seen more than a handful of movies, good or bad.
Right.
But I do want to just, because he's an author, books are the theme. I do want to get, and Nicole, we can go back and forth.
Yep.
The 5 recommendations,
all right.
maybe your favorite books of Stephen King. And I didn't want to go worst on this one because there are bad ones out there, but why waste your time talking about these?
Sure.
So, Nicole,
This
what's your...
isn't Baconsale.
But we'll talk about 5 least favorite movies
Yeah,
for sure.
definitely.
So, Nicole, what's your 5th favorite book?
Salem's Lot.
Okay, why? What's it about?
Yes, brief synopsis.
Vampires taking over a town.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Basically.
And how many pages it takes for him to say that?
About 800.
Okay.
Yeah.
Salem's, because it plays on the fear of. I grew up in a small town, and so he just plays on the fear of everyone knowing everyone. And so you're trusting, but you're like, do I trust this person? Is this person going to be the one that turns on me?
It seems like most of his novels take place in a small town. Like he doesn't
And so
go
I
on-
think
Yeah.
that's probably why I
Write
like
what you
him.
know, basically.
Yeah, I think that's why I like it so much because I could relate. I grew up in a town of less than 3,000 people.
And
out
how
in
many
the
demons arrived in your town?
lot. So I think that's why I relate to it. So yeah, Salem's Lot.
Okay, my 5th favorite is The Stand, which we've talked about a little bit, but real quick. A deadly virus is released across the world, killing 99.4% of the population. The survivors either dream of a holy figure, Mother Abigail, or an evil figure, Randall Flagg. And these
basically-
factions prepare for war.
Last Man on Earth, right?
Kind
The
of.
TV series with Will Forte?
Except for Molly Ringwald's in there.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, that's the movie. She's not the book.
Stand is it's his epic. The way it describes,
More so than The Dark Tower.
it is one book that you only have to
Okay.
read. The ending is atrocious, but the book itself has amazing characters and this really cool setup for a war.
Okay, my number 4 is Different Seasons because I think it has
The short story novel.
it has 4 stories that I think are all really good. Of course, one of them is Shawshank Redemption, Stand By Me. Okay, what's your number 4?
Number 4 is It. This book is overly long, but it's scary from start to finish. Very descriptive. Joel, there's a reason you stopped reading this one.
Yeah.
It's because it starts off with an attack, and it's kids being attacked.
Yeah.
And it's horrible.
Very gory.
We all know It based on popular conscience, I think, at this point.
Yeah, everyone knows Pennywise at this point.
Yeah, but it's...
One of the hardest movies to Google, by the way. Because you type in it, and
yeah.
it's just like, Google's like, I don't know what you want.
And then if you put it like, they're like, IT? Need IT
Yeah.
help? Yeah.
Yeah.
IT crowd?
The It crowd.
Yeah.
The ending of It in the book is slightly better than in either of the movies.
The one with the turtle is
Yeah.
slightly better than the one with the spider.
Correct.
Okay.
Because it explains it, and it takes 300 pages to explain the end. All right, Nicole, what's your number 3?
I have number 3 as The Shining.
Okay.
I love this
Brief
book.
synopsis of-
So basically, a family is taking care of a hotel that is haunted. Why it closes down for the winter, so they're the only ones that are in this hotel, and so Jack thinks it's a great time to work on his novel, and he goes crazy.
Yeah, but, it's all work for him.
Yeah.
No play for him.
No play.
The reason why I like this one is the part. It's not in the original movie. There's a part in there talking about the topiaries coming to life. That really tripped me out. I don't know.
Did it? Okay.
Yeah, it's because he
Topiaries meaning plants.
Yeah.
Like maize.
Instead
Yeah.
of the maze, it's the plant creatures.
It's plant creatures. They're dressed. They're like lions, and the way he talks about them crunching on the snow. You could hear them coming for Danny, and I'm just like, for some reason, his description of that part is so amazing.
That's one thing about, and we'll get this more in the movies maybe, but love them or hate them in the movies, there's always something memorable, something that sticks with you out of them. Some visual
Yeah.
or description.
Even if the script is bad, the acting is bad. There's something good there.
Yeah.
All right, my third favorite book is the 4th book in the Dark Tower series. It's called Wizard and Glass.
You're picking one book out of a series
Yes.
as your number 3?
Yes. And if you're only going to read one book in the series, probably this one. This is a flashback book.
Can you stand alone? It's standalone?
It's-
So
it's
it
the one
starts
that could
off
be a
and it says,
standalone.
here's where we were in our journey. And then about 50 pages in, it's like, now let's visit young Roland Deschain.
Why
As
is he like he
His
is?
2 best friends, basically. They go to this town, this old country town, and he falls in love. And it's a beautiful love story.
It really is.
And
Stephen King's writing beautiful love stories?
somehow.
No, it really is.
I've never read a beautiful Stephen. I've never seen a beautiful Stephen King love story.
This one is a recommendation
It really is.
for that reason.
Pet Cemetery, maybe.
No fair.
No fair.
Anyways, Nicole, what's your number 2?
Misery.
Okay. I've actually never read Misery, the book.
Oh, I've read it.
Is it a novella or a novel?
No, it's a book.
I'm
Okay.
its number 1 fan.
It's a book.
You're its number
I'm
one
its
fan?
number 1 fan.
Oh.
No, Misery.
Misery, brief synopsis for those.
So an author gets trapped off to the side, and his number 1 fan helps to save him and brings him back to health.
Yes.
Health. Okay.
Health,
Yes.
That's what they call it.
So if you guys haven't seen the movie, in
Wow.
the book, there's
It's a
a
good
John
movie.
Deere lawnmower scene. Oh, it's horrific.
Yeah. All right, my number 2 is called, and this is kind of a hipster one, but that's what I do. It's called The Talisman.
I love the telephone.
This is better than any of the Dark Tower novels, but it's directly tied. It's about a 12-year-old named Jack Sawyer. He's trying to save his mom dying from cancer, and in order to do that, he needs to find the talisman, and he has to go to the other world that we've talked about in the Dark Tower series in order to do that. And it's a short book. It's maybe 400 pages. Short for Stephen King.
Short.
I know. And it's great because it is standalone, Joel. It does reference the Dark Tower a lot, but you don't need to
This
have
came
read
before
the
or
Dark
after
Tower.
Dark Tower?
Right in between.
My number 1, I guess it's Dark Tower series.
As a collection.
Yes. Out of all of them, I think my favorite's probably the 7th book, when it all comes to a conclusion.
Deathly Hallows.
Yeah.
They split into 2 parts, obviously.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, I laughed, I cried. I mean, I was excited and frustrated all at the same time with this book. And it's just like, here we go. This is the end. I mean, well, first of all, we didn't know if we were going to get this book because, again, his accident, he was almost dead. And you're just like, am I going to be able to know what the end of this series? So, yeah.
Oh, and I feel bad for his family, too. But
Yeah, about me.
Write more. His best book is not a horror novel. It's called 11/22/63. and this
that's a
is
good
about a time traveler who attempts to prevent the assassination of JFK.
Which happened on November 22nd, 1963.
Exactly.
There's also a TV series.
Yeah, there's a miniseries starring James
haven't watched
Franco.
it yet.
It obviously shortens it way too much. James Franco, he's fine in it, but he is not the character I envisioned. And this book is actually a beautiful love story. Very, not even really any horror elements.
Yeah,
It's-
but is it a beautiful love story or is one of them a telepath?
there's a telepath in there for sure.
knew it!
Maybe time tries to attack the main character for trying to change time.
Time does? Like a Langolier?
Kind of like no reference to Langoliers in this one, but this is a beautiful novel and it nails the ending.
Well, it's
which
one
is
of-
rare for
It's
Stephen
one of those
King.
books that make you think. You're like, oh, what if? Like, what if this did happen? What? Yeah,
It's an amazing book.
it's really good.
Okay.
Okay, so we've teased this enough.
Sorry.
Yeah, most of this episode has been like Kent's like, we'll get there. We'll get there.
We'll get there, and we're here.
Oh, we're here.
Let's get negative.
All right.
Yay! So I want to talk about our least favorite. Like honestly, these movies are just bombs. Like,
Well, it's not like best and worst, like critically. It could just be our
is it
least
not?
favorite.
Is it not?
You're not going to agree with some of my picks.
Oh, I know one of your picks, and I already don't agree.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
So, Zach, how many of the movies have you seen?
Probably like 2.
Okay.
Were they good or bad?
Good.
Because you're not big into horror.
No, not at all.
I love horror.
I mean, I've seen The Shining, and that's quite an interesting movie.
Which
I'm
one?
Glad I watched it. What do you mean, which one?
There is a miniseries.
You think
and
Zack
come
knows about the
on.
miniseries in the 90s starring Steven Weber?
Hey, we'll get there.
Okay, yeah.
Is a miniseries a movie?
Yeah.
Then I've seen the
Made for
movie.
TV movie?
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Did you see the one with Jack Nicholson?
Come on. Of course that's the one.
And do you like it or hate
Get
it?
out of the weeds, nerds.
Weeds is actually
If I say The
Stephen
Shining,
King.
I mean The Shining. You
We're in
know
the
what
tall
I mean.
grass, okay?
Come on.
You know, Stephen King didn't care for it.
Yeah.
We'll get there.
Yeah. Did you know that Stephen?
Joel's part.
Did you know Stephen King also apparently can't do a good ending to a novel?
Exactly.
So I don't really think we should trust his opinion on movies.
Again, go read Wisdom
Well,
and Glass.
truth be told, whenever he dips his hand in the ink for the screenplay, it's not a great idea.
not.
His ideas work best when he has minimal interference. I
Agreed.
think.
All right, Joel, what's your fifth least favorite Stephen King movie?
The fifth worst Stephen King movie is The Mist, 2007. This stars Thomas Jane, Marcia Gay Harden, Andre Brower, Captain Holt. The synopsis: a freak storm unleashes a species of bloodthirsty creatures on a small town where a band of citizens hole up in a supermarket and fight for their lives. This one is rated R, but is also on Clear Play and VidAngel. This one was one where it had a great setup. Great setup. And I love
So
the
good.
idea of how people react during a crisis. It's a very much a zombie type movie where these people are contained in one area and they'd be fine if they just stuck together, but people don't do that.
It's a little bit like Night of the Living Dead, where it's
Yes.
groupthink. They're stuck together, and then you
But-
deviate from that, you might
but
die.
characters kept making stupid decisions like that. I just feel like people wouldn't make, but they kept making these dumb
I
decisions.
feel like some characters were persuasive enough in
the
this.
CGI was a little cheesy, and then the ending. And I'm not going to spoil it, but the ending, which you already talked about,
See, I like
not the
the-
original book ending.
Have you ever
And
had the wind knocked out of you
yes.
like 37 times? Yeah,
Yes.
that's what the ending of this is.
The ending of this is and I feel like it's a I felt that kind of how I felt about the ending, to the point where this made my worst list, Ken.
Apparently.
This would have been one of the middle ones if it weren't for this ending.
High
But
praise.
that's my number 5 is The Mist.
All right, my number 5 is The Langoliers. This was a
Yeah.
miniseries, so 2 episodes, and this was in the 90s. And this, of all of his miniseries, I think this may have been the worst one. So it's most of the passengers on an airplane disappear, and the remainder land the plane in a mysterious barren airport, which is the worst description because basically they're stuck in between time. And
Yeah.
there are these meatballs from space
At the very end.
that come up and
Meatballs from space.
they have sharp teeth.
It's so 90s looking.
And then they chew everything.
it looks
It's
like one of those like Capri Sun commercials of like these CGI creatures flying through the air.
and they're eating time as it passes, so they have a natural thing to do. But when you're stuck in between time, these space meatballs, they want to
Yes.
chew you up.
And Balky Bartokomous is in it.
Yes, he is.
Bronson Pinchot.
Oh, he's a good bad guy though.
But that's just it. So even though it's I agree, Kent. This is one of the bad ones.
Bad.
But for some reason, him tearing the paper
Mm-hmm.
like kind of just weirded me out to the point where it stuck with me for a long time. Because he does this one character just obsessively tears paper when he wants to relax, and he just tears like
It stayed with
bits and
you.
bits and bits. Yeah, that and certain lines too. Just like him talking about trying to figure out what's going on and how the sandwiches didn't have taste because they were out of time. Stuff like that stuck with me because I was like, that's original.
You just had space meatballs. They taste delicious.
Yes, they do.
My number 5, I actually like the movie, but I think it's a bad adaptation, is The Running Man.
Oh.
No, I like the movie.
It's rude.
But
Peak Schwarzenegger is bad?
Yeah.
no, like I said, I like the movie, but if you've read the story, it is nothing. Well, a little, like 80% of it is not what happens in the
I
story.
recommend watching Cinefix does these What's the Difference series. It's a YouTube channel called Cinefix. And they do these things called What's the Difference where they compare books and movies. And they do it in a very creative way. And it's so fun to watch. And they did one of The Running Man that I highly enjoyed.
Yeah. And that's why I didn't like the adaptation. I do like the movie and I like the story, but they just don't go together because in the story, he is trying to fight for his family. Arnold doesn't have a family. He's fighting for his own freedom, you know? And like I said, I still love Running Man. I remember watching it with my dad when I was younger.
Here's Sub-Zero. Now Plane Zero.
And the ending of the book, it's one of those ones that like, ugh, it sticks with you.
Okay.
Well, it's actually a short story, so.
Joel, your fourth least favorite.
My fourth least favorite movie adaptation is The Stand, 1994. I just felt that we already talked about kind of it's just a virus kills a bunch of the population, and then there's a good leader and a bad leader, and they're going to go to war.
Yep.
This one had like 125 speaking roles. This was 4 episodes, 366 minutes, and it aired in 1994 in May. But you got Gary Sinise, Rob Lowe, Molly Ringwald, Ray Winston, Ed Harris,
Patrick Starr.
Matt Frewer, Moon spells Dauber. But it's just bad acting. Filmed a lot in Utah, by the way. Like I remember I was watching it and I was like, that's Union Station. Like,
actually, a lot of the story is set in Utah and Nevada. So
yeah, but this one was nominated for like 6 Primetime Emmy Awards. And I'm like, why? Because it's not that good. It really hasn't aged well either. So maybe if I watched it back then, as a teenager, I would have liked it more. But by the way, directed by Mick Garris. You guys know The Goonies?
Yeah.
He directed the making of The Goonies.
I found that interesting.
Yeah, Stephen King actually he did the screenplay for this as well.
Yeah.
So he had a direct influence on this, and it did not turn out well.
It did not turn out.
That's my number 4.
Yeah. The fourth worst for me is called Cell. This is one of his mid-2000s ones. And Stephen King,
This is not the one with Jennifer Lopez.
No, he hates new technology. He doesn't trust new
he
technology.
still has a flip phone, I think.
Yeah. And so the synopsis is, when a mysterious cell phone signal causes apocalyptic chaos, an artist is determined to reunite with his young son in New England. Basically, this is when cell phones are really just taken off. Everyone's on their cell phone, and it's almost like there's this signal which causes everyone to turn into a zombie. And that could be cool, except for like instead of how different shows don't say zombies, they're called phoners.
Phoners?
The phoners are coming to get us.
Oh my gosh.
Now you got to remember, this is what, 600, 700 page book?
Yeah, and it's
Is the book good?
No.
Fans hate this.
So the book's bad and the
Non-fans hate
adaptation's
this,
bad.
and the movie it stars John Cusack and Samuel L. Jackson, and it is horrific.
I think that's 1408.
This was when
the
they
second.
the second time they got together, and it was a bad choice.
No, and the book is horrible. It would have been good as a short story, but
Don't call them phoners.
he definitely phoned it in on that one.
Zach got it.
Hey, Zack.
Zach's here.
Zack's here.
Zach's here.
Zach. I missed you.
That was pretty funny.
I know this is going over everyone's head.
All right, Nicole, what's your number 4?
It's already been mentioned, The Langoliers.
Okay, Joel. What's your number 3?
My number 3 is Creep Show, 1982.
It's a classic.
Oh my gosh, it's terrible.
It so much, Nicole.
My review literally says Creep Show isn't creepy, it's crappy.
Is that the I
there's-
want my cake?
No, there's 4 short stories in this. 2
so
of which
good.
are adapted from Stephen King short stories. Weeds and The Crate are both his
The Crate
short
is
stories.
awesome.
This was his screenwriting. It's
I
probably
love it.
it's probably one of the better ones on that movie.
Yeah.
So he did the screenwriting on this. Stephen King did, and he put himself in one of
course
them
he
as
did.
a terrible actor. And then George A. Romero is the one who directed it, and he's the one who did Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, Land of the Dead, Diary of the Dead, and There's Always Vanilla.
Of the Dead.
Yes. And this has like Leslie Nielsen's in it, Ted Danson's in it, like
Sam Malone?
It's weird. Yeah, he's in it. When I watched this, I was excited because I'm like, oh, it's going to be like a little Tales from the Crypt thing.
Yeah, anthology series.
But the acting is so corny in this. Like, you could see where the story's going. Like, they're so drawn out. Like, they're watered down. Like, they had to fill the time. And so, by the time I got to the end, I just stopped caring every time.
But it was so good they made a sequel.
Through 2 sequels. There was a Creepshow 2 and a Creepshow 3.
Creepshow 2 is actually kind of scary.
I really just did not like that one. So, yeah, not a fan of Creepshow.
All right.
Worst.
My number 3 is The Lawnmower Man.
Oh, that is bad.
A simple man is turned into a genius through the application of computer science.
Computers!
This is a revolutionary movie in effects.
Early 90s, but it's all about VR.
Yeah.
Like, that's a bad one.
Yeah, before the Nightmare of the Virtual Boy, Pierce Brosnan and Jeff Fahey in one of the worst movies ever.
Yeah.
And it's only my number 3 worst Stephen King movie.
Pretty bad.
But it's atrocious.
Absolutely.
I think this one came from a short story as well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why.
The short story's really odd.
Yeah.
Like, really odd.
All right, Nicole, what's your number 3?
My number 3 is The Mangler.
The Mangler.
Yeah.
Never
Is that an
read
adaptation?
it.
I've never seen it.
So, The Mangler, okay, it was a short story. Basically about a professional laundry presser that came to life because someone died in it. It's kind of like Audrey, too.
Okay.
And it fed on the blood, so it started going down the street and eating people.
And this is a movie? Where can I watch this? I want to watch it right now.
It's her number 3 worst. Kent.
It is horrible. You're just like, the story was bad, and I can't believe they made it into a movie.
The Mangler.
Wow.
Drug money.
Yeah.
Joel, you're number 2?
My number 2 is Christine, 1983.
You hate that so much.
What?
Now, Zach, I got this factoid just for you.
I'm so excited because it's about car.
The car in the film is a 1958 Plymouth Fury, red.
It is. Yes, it is.
And that's all I wanted to get for you. So sorry,
That's
Zach.
my favorite part.
There you go.
I love
Zach's
how it's
back
red.
in the show.
I like
guys.
the show. Yeah.
No,
Stephen King.
The synopsis is a nerdish boy buys a strange car with an evil mind of its own, and its nature starts to change to reflect it.
Nerdish boy?
It's
Car?
a possessed
I love
car.
It.
Which, wait, is that right? Did this come out the same year it was written, 1983, 1983? That
Maybe.
can't be right.
It took like 2 weeks to film, probably.
Oh my gosh, it's so bad. And this is directed by John Carpenter. So Stephen King, good at horror. John Carpenter, good at horror. You put them together, not good at horror. It is really, it's just kind of awful. Like, it's this half-baked plot, laughable acting, and all the scares are completely boring. The only thing I liked about this movie is whenever Christine the car gets like damaged, she reconstructs. And those effects, I was watching that going, that's pretty cool.
Super cool.
And then I got really bored again because it was just
Well,
terrible.
Stephen King is known to not like Christine as much, so he tried to rewrite it as From a Buick 8. Did you read that one?
No.
Yeah.
Portal to Alien World is the trunk.
Of course.
Oh.
Is he okay?
I don't know.
And even John Carpenter said, he said, this wasn't a personal product. This was just a job. I didn't even want to do it.
Someone needed a new
Okay.
yacht.
Yeah.
All right, Kent?
My number 2 is called Dreamcatcher. So this
I remember
movie,
that trailer.
You don't like the poop weasels.
The what?
It's called something else.
I was going to synopsize it, but honestly, that's kind of it. So friends on a camping trip get kind of stuck in the middle of an alien attack.
By a person called Mr. Gray.
But it's like an alien parasite. There is a scene in this movie where I think Jason Lee is sitting on a toilet
Hello.
for about 10 minutes.
Like Jason Lee?
Yeah, Jason Lee.
My name is Earl Jason Lee.
Yes.
Yeah, I like him.
And it's like, I'm like, did a 10-year-old make this movie? Honestly, like, it is the most immature movie. Just the fact that they dwelled on that moment.
So much. I mean,
And it's an alien that you can imagine.
it's kind of like the scene in Dumb and Dumber. The toilet
Wow.
scene in Dumb and Dumber.
But it's an alien.
But,
What?
yeah, but you don't survive the toilet.
It's super tacky.
Been there.
Family friendly.
And if anyone's seen this movie, I'm sorry. If you haven't seen this movie, never ever watch it.
Or read the
like
book.
It's got a good cast. Like Damian Lewis is there, Thomas Jane, Morgan Freeman's in the movie as well.
Morgan Freeman.
Yeah.
Morgan Freeman.
But they're all wasted. It's atrocious.
Nicole, you're number 2?
My number 2 has already been mentioned. Cell.
Ah,
Yeah.
that's Kent's, yeah.
Horrible.
It is bad. I was thinking it was going to be good because of 1408. I'm like, oh, it's the same cast. Here we go. I didn't care for the book. Let's see how the movie goes, and it's just as bad.
Yeah.
As much as I love John Cusack, it's not even worth.
80s John Cusack,
John
early
Cusack.
90s maybe.
Yeah, it's true. All right, Joel, number 1.
My number one has been mentioned before, but I'm going to go in a little more detail because it is The Lawnmower Man.
Okay. Yeah.
So this was the title comes from a Stephen King short story called The Lawnmower Man, but the script for the movie is not. The script for the movie was one that I think it was called Cyber God, and then they decided they were going to attach Stephen King's name of his short story to this movie with no relation, then try to tie it in together. Because in the movie, it is this guy who mows lawns who ends up going to virtual reality and becoming a super genius. And
There's a lot of adult situations,
yes,
isn't it?
but then the Stephen King is about a guy who mows lawns, but the lawnmower moves itself, and he actually crawls behind it and eats the grass because he's actually Pan, mythical creature Pan.
What, like Pan's Labyrinth?
Yeah, kind of that thing, and sacrifices people to sacrifice
That's
people.
way different.
Yeah.
Oh, completely different. To the point where Stephen King sued to have his name removed from the credits because he's like, this is not my movie. And so he ended up getting some money for that, and they said, okay, we won't use your name in the marketing. But then when it came on VHS, they did it again, and he got to sue again for damages.
Wow.
So, this was really like such a horrible.
It's so bad.
From the title card, you're watching it, it's like, in this world, there's something called virtual reality, which uses computers. And it's so dated
Computers.
from the beginning. The acting is terrible. Pierce Brosnan is terrible in this. It is such a terrible, terrible movie, and I hate it so much.
Yeah, it's horrible.
Kent, what's your number one?
Maximum Overdrive.
No, Kent!
This is
That was one of my favorites as a kid.
Was it really?
Yes.
I liked
Okay.
it as a kid.
Terrifying as a kid.
If you've seen, the only thing you'll know from this movie is there is a semi truck with the Green Goblin's face.
Yeah, like a green, yeah.
Like a bumper on it.
Yeah.
So a group of people try to survive when machines start to come alive and become homicidal. This stars Emilio Estevez and Pat Hingle. This is basically a movie that should have come out in the 1950s. It's like, machines attack!
Yeah.
But this is basically semi-trucks and tractors trying to kill people. But
it's
there's only
machines coming alive and trying to
there's
kill
only
people.
a cast of like 10 people in this
Basically
movie.
Decepticons.
Yeah, but there's like a very small cast, this farm town. Honestly, the best part of the movie is there's this kid on a little league team, and his coach goes to get a soda, and the vending machine is trying to kill the
It
coach.
shoots out sodas at their heads.
And it kills the coach by shooting sodas and kills the other kids.
Kent, that terrified me
And
as
honestly,
a kid.
at one point, this kid was trying to get away, and he's on his bike. He falls for some reason, and then this bulldozer,
Steamroller.
steamroller,
Oh, yeah, it's a
it was a steamroller, goes right over him, and I was like, oh my goodness. But this movie is the worst.
It's not the worst.
It's a B movie with F level quality.
I
It's
disagree.
horrible.
I disagree.
It's basically like
I
they're
enjoyed
talking
it
to
as
the
a
fronts
child.
of trucks like, oh yeah, you want to kill me? Come and get me. And then they'll slowly drive forward and they'll threaten them. They drive around this truck stop. It's
terrifying.
And it's like, almost like they're sharks. But
It's
they can easily
terrifying.
destroy the truck stop.
How?
Oh, by driving into it, which they eventually do. Spoiler alert. Maximum Overdrive is the worst. And Stephen King, he's also a character in the movie and had a lot to do with the movie as well.
I've seen worse.
Okay, that's my least
You
favorite.
put that below Lawnmower Man?
I had to.
No, you didn't.
I'm sorry.
What do you think, Nicole?
Time to get the finger boop. Lawnmower Man is the
Thank you.
This short story was even ridiculous because I'm just going to go spoiler on the Lawnmower Man.
Go ahead.
3, 2, 1. So the guy that hires the Lawnmower Man in this short story, he looks outside and he sees him. And so basically the fawn kills him. Mm-hmm. That's it. So his story doesn't go on.
Yeah.
Lame.
It's stupid. But
It's creepy because the
It's
dude's crawling behind a lawnmower.
And you're not talking
eating
about
grass.
someone. You're talking about a fawn. This guy is grossly overweight. He hasn't showered for a few weeks. He's just
He's eating
gross.
grass. He should be, doing well.
You'd think he would, but he's not. But oh my gosh, that movie.
The movie's so bad. It's
I mean,
so bad.
even if it wasn't an adaptation, it's a bad movie overall. Oh my gosh, it's so horrible.
Yeah.
Finger boop.
Finger whip.
Wow.
All right.
That was very negative.
It was. Now, before we get into the positive, though, a couple of awards to give out. For example, we have, for me, the Childhood Nightmare Award goes to Maximum Overdrive.
Why?
I had nightmares about this movie because the machines turn on people. A guy gets electrocuted by a video game. This turkey carver attacks a woman. There's the trucks that are just killing a ton of people the whole time. And there's a part when they're trying to get away and this drive-through microphone narcs them out.
Yeah.
And all like humans here. And they get busted and have to hide again. And it was so terrifying to me as a kid. I got so scared from this movie.
Of all the moments, they all float down here.
That got me too, but this was one that we watched this a lot as kids.
Okay.
And it did scare me. So that's my award for that.
I'll honor your award by saying the one that creeped me out was Children of the Corn.
Yeah.
I get that.
Yeah.
Definitely more scary than Maximum Overdrive.
because
What's his
they're-
name? Jedediah, whatever he says when he comes out of the corner.
I mean, because they're kids, and you're just like, I don't like how these kids are.
Yeah.
So I had an award for scared me the most as a child. So basically the same thing, but it's Zelda from Pet Sematary.
Ooh, yeah.
And if people are listening and they remember this, because there are plenty of moments from these kind of bad adaptations that are scary. This one got me most. And I remember I'm watching it. I'm at a scout camp and we're at Strawberry Reservoir.
And you're watching Pet Sematary?
And all the leaders left. And so we turn on cable.
Oh my gosh.
And, we're like,
Oh, it was cable. So.
we're 11.
Yeah.
And no, cable was
Paid
not.
cable?
Yeah. It was not edited
Oh.
at that time. And we start watching Pet Sematary, and we were like, yes, this is awesome. We're getting away with so much. And then I regretted everything because there's only a 2-minute segment. But the main character, Rachel, she talks about her sister Zelda, who had spinal meningitis. But in this movie, they make her, but it's played by an older man, to be a monster.
Yes.
And-
It scared her as a kid, and so in her telling of the story...
And as a
monster.
kid, she's like, look, I let my sister die. I didn't want to feed her anymore.
Spoiler
and as
alert.
an adult, spoiler alert, as an adult, comes back to at least haunt her memories. And it is
so
horrifying. When she approaches the camera, it's like, I'm going to twist your back, Rachel. I was like, oh, stop it. And I regretted it, and I never watched a movie like that ever again.
Oh, liar.
Sure.
Yep.
I'll just go throw this out there. My overrated award, overrated award. I'm giving it to The Shining.
The movie.
Overrated?
The movie. Yeah, the overrated. Because people put this up there as like the scariest movie of all time.
It's pretty messed up.
The best horror movie of all time.
The performance by Jack Nicholson is amazing.
And I'm like, I
I
liked
think
it.
he's performing, though. I think that's Jack Nicholson.
you might be right.
Listener, don't get me wrong. I like it. I think it did effectively
you
scare
could
me.
have done that in your best Jack
The
Nicholson.
dog,
You did.
the
liked
dog bear,
it.
the dog bear.
But there's definite moments in there that terrify me. But
The blood
I have-
elevator.
The
that-
twins.
yeah, and there's
The old
iconic
lady.
moments.
Yeah.
Definite. I'm not bashing on this movie. I'm just saying everyone props it up as so scary.
Well, because it's Kubrick doing a horror movie,
But
right?
Stephen King didn't like it either.
Well, he's
Stephen
wrong.
King hated this adaptation so much that he made a 3-episode horror miniseries in 1997 starring Steven Weber from Wings.
Yes.
And let me tell you, I actually enjoy that version better than... That's what I was going to say. This is controversy. Because it's more like the book.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, so the book is that boring? Is that what you're saying?
No.
Okay.
What
Is it that a good thing? I mean,
Well, the one part that I liked about the book that they put into the miniseries was the croquet mallet. When he spoiler. So in Jack Nicholson, he goes after his wife with the axe, right?
Right.
In the book and the miniseries, he goes after her with a croquet mallet. And in the book, it's so graphic because he's talking about hitting her with a croquet mallet. It's
Yeah, but
piercing
we get
her
it.
lungs and stuff. And
We get it. The eyeball popped out in the mosh pit. We get it.
Yeah. Jeez.
And they actually put that in the miniseries. I'm like, this is good. I like it. And of course, the topiaries. I like that too.
Yeah.
I like the maze better.
So that was my overrated award. Not that it's not a good movie, but just like I remember I was let down when I saw it. I did see it later in life, but
The most disturbing moment in a Stephen King
come on.
movie is from Misery. And we've talked about this. It's the sledgehammer scene.
yep.
yes.
Because you see it, you hear it.
Oh, God.
You
But-
hear it.
Having watched it again, it is amazing how much they don't show. Like it
It's
could
kind
have
of like
been.
Psycho.
It lets
It could
your
have been
mind,
much more I've
Yeah.
seen much more graphic
Yeah.
stuff in Stephen
But
King
when
movies.
you anticipate that coming the second time around, too.
it's so scary.
Because the whole movie is tension, right? And he's
Yeah.
almost getting away and then kind of getting caught and trying to kiss up and make good. And then that moment happens. You're like, oh,
what's her name? Kathy Bates.
Yeah,
yeah.
Kathy
Annie
Bates.
Wilkes,
Oh.
the character.
And yeah.
She's my number one fan.
Oh,
And
the
can I go
cockamamie books.
off of Misery? I would say she is my number one villain in all of Stephen King because
She's fantastic.
she is so real.
Yeah.
Because you know this person, they're super sweet, but on the inside you're like, you're nuts.
She's a cock-a-doodle crazy.
But see, that's why I think she is so terrifying. I think she is the number one villain in all of his books because she is so real.
Played very well by Lizzie Kaplan in Castle Rock, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I haven't seen it.
I haven't seen Castle Rock yet. That's on my to-do list, but that's why I'll give her my favorite villain.
My next award is for Overlooked Hotel Adaptation Award,
Stop it.
and it's 1408.
oh, my goodness.
1408 is one of those I feel like people kind of glance over because it's actually
love
pretty
1408.
effective. It's psychological horror. Not perfect, not great, I might say, but it's a good thriller. And it did mess with my head to the point where I was like, I don't know, it's real anymore. So yeah, 1408 is my...
Hey guys, I saw this one in the theater.
Yay! Hey, Zach. Zach's on the show.
Zach's here.
My next award is for the worst Stephen King ending. And this is going back to books. And there are so many bad endings.
Oh, geez.
And I'm about to spoil Under the Dome.
Oh, they did a TV series of that, didn't they?
Yes, they did. So
Was
5,
it 2 seasons?
6, 7, 8. So the book of Under the Dome is one of his longest books. The book is so full of rich characters, and I loved
one percenters?
it. One percenters, all of them. But the story is basically there's a small town, basically a main town, and then all of a sudden a dome, thump, clear dome, is placed on the town. So basically it's
Isn't this the plot of the Simpsons movie?
yes, precisely. Anyways, the town starts going crazy. The air's getting really bad. Nothing can escape this dome, and it's great. And there's intrigue here, and it's not horrifying, but it's all about paranoia. And it was written definitely during the 2000s and in whatever was happening at that time.
2009.
Yeah. Basically, at the end of the book, once again, I'm going to spoil this.
The book.
Yes, there's a telepath at the end of the book.
In a
Joel,
Stephen King novel?
You'd be surprised to find out.
What?
And the telepath finds out that what's behind this dome are aliens called Leatherheads. And aliens, it's alien teens that were peer pressuring each other, and they were playing a prank on humans, and they placed this dome over a town just to see what would happen. And that's the reason for the dome. And basically the telepath says, hey, but I had a bad childhood. And this alien girl was like, okay, I'll lift the dome. And that's what happens at the end of the book.
Under the Dome is the third largest book.
And it's an amazing story until the very end.
Did you watch the adaptation?
I made it 2 episodes, and that's it.
Okay.
Because I was so mad.
I'm gonna dovetail on that then. I have here the I Could Have Written a Better Ending Award, and this goes to Storm of the Century,
Oh, I've never seen it.
1999. This was a miniseries.
It was good
two-parter.
until the end.
So that's just it. So the whole point, I'm going to read the synopsis here. A dangerous blizzard hits an isolated town and brings along a mysterious stranger intent on terrorizing people for his own desires. Small town, stranger coming in, bad things happen.
Yeah.
So this guy is kind of exposing these people's secrets and using it to blackmail them, and he gets more and more nefarious, and then it gets to the ending. And I'm not going to spoil it because you haven't seen it directly here on the show. But I'll say this, is that I got to the end.
You can spoil it. I'm probably not going to watch it.
I got to the end, and I went, that was a terrible ending. And right then, talking there with I think it was my brothers, we came up with a better ending where essentially this guy is using everyone's secrets against them. And we were like, and he wants this big sacrifice at the end. And they give it to him in the movie. But we had this whole thing where it's like, if they just start confessing their sins, they're going to take away his power. He has no power over them. He cannot get what he wants. And they win, even though they have to expose their secrets and their sins.
Okay.
And it just worked out so much better in our version, because their version, it just goes this route where you're like, well, that was a dumb ending.
That's too bad.
So Storm
Typical,
of the Century,
though.
yeah, it was actually really good up to that point, and then that just killed it.
Because the villain in that one's really good.
He is.
He's truly terrifying.
Yeah.
All right, just because I need to take it back to the writing, the best short story is called N, like the letter N.
I do like that one. I forgot
And I would
about
recommend
that
this to anyone
I've seen the
listening
movie
right now.
M. the
Yeah,
letter
definitely
M.
not M.
Yeah.
So N is a 54-page novella, and this is in the 2008 short story collection called Just After Sunset, but you can find N on its own, probably online somewhere. And basically it details a psychiatrist's notes about his patient, who he just puts N instead of naming him. And this patient felt he was the guardian of this portal. It's kind of a Lovecraftian story, portal where if he didn't rely on his OCD, basically, and I don't want to get too much into it, but he looked for patterns, and if patterns were off, this giant elder god basically would destroy the planet. And so this patient kind of takes it upon himself to be the
talked
guardian.
about before about Stephen King just building that out to the point of bizarre.
Totally, but
Yeah.
this works because it's a short story.
Okay.
If you made this an 800-page book, garbage,
Fair.
most likely. But it is creepy, and it makes you feel like you have OCD along with the characters. Okay. 54 pages. This is palatable.
All right. And then my final award goes to didn't like it the first time I saw it award, and that goes to The Green Mile.
Really?
So the first time I saw The Green Mile, I was kind of put off
Same.
on it because it starts out this just straightforward kind of police drama, or not police drama, prison drama, but then it has a supernatural element, and then it has an ending that just guts you. And I got to the end, and I was like, I didn't like that. On subsequent watches, though, I'm like, this is actually a really good movie.
It's emotional.
Yeah,
for sure.
very emotional. And that's what's so effective at.
John
Give your
Coffey is my
hands, boss.
second favorite character.
John Coffey's great.
I love John Coffey.
If you don't know, by the way, The Green Mile, the lives of guards on death row are affected by one of their charges, a black man accused of child murder who has a mysterious gift.
Again, one of the worst villains comes from Green Mile.
Yeah.
The warden, Percy Wetmore. Oh my gosh, can you get
Well,
more?
Also, Wild Bill, but
Well,
your
he's-
buddy there, what's his name?
Wild Bill's
From Moon, Sam Rockwell.
Yeah. Oh, he's horrible in that
despicable.
movie.
well, he is
My buddy.
But the thing is, with Wild Bill, he is in prison.
Yeah.
The wardens, you're like, these are the people that are supposed to, what he
Yeah.
does.
He's
is,
kind of awful in that regard.
Hate him.
Yeah.
All right, my last award is Stephen King's best creature/creation, and it's Pennywise.
Definitely. Absolutely.
Like, and granted, he's
whoa, whoa,
come
whoa,
up-
whoa, 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 whoa. If you're putting this in your words, that means it's not in your top 5.
Maybe not. Sorry.
Okay.
But
fine.
Pennywise is, clowns were already scary. And
Were they
he-
though?
Yes.
No, because I feel like the kids who grew up in that generation, the kids who watched it when they were in their 10-year-old age,
That
around
was us.
there,
That was us.
that they became afraid of clowns. Whereas my wife never saw it. She doesn't have a fear of clowns, and then she watched it and she wasn't scared of it.
I was not scared of it. I was scared of the clown and poltergeist.
Also scary.
That's when I was
So
like,
the
"Woo!"
1980s are what made us afraid of clowns.
Yes,
Oh, still. So horrible.
I think it's a great choice though.
And
'Cause
Tim Curry. Wow.
oh yeah, you prefer the Tim Curry to the Bill Skarsgård?
Well, that's because that's my original nightmare. But Bill Skarsgård does a good job.
I think he did a great job. Well, when I first saw the costume to Skarsgård, I'm like, Ruffles, are you kidding me? He has ruffles. How am I supposed to be scared of ruffles?
But when he's waving that arm,
oh, yeah, he's like, hi.
yeah, don't explain it, Nicole. We're good.
Yeah.
All right, let's continue some of the positive things that have been happening. Going with your top 5 Stephen King movies. We'll start with you, Joel.
Okay, my number 5 is actually Pet Sematary. We've already talked about this.
The original one.
The original one, 1989. I haven't seen the remake.
With Fred Gwynn.
Yes, Herman Munster. But
I love him.
This one, if you don't know the synopsis, after tragedy strikes, a grieving father discovers an ancient burial ground behind his home with the power to raise the dead. This is rated R, but it is on VidAngel and Clear Play. And Stephen King did write the screenplay for this one, so he was involved. But this was one where the first time I saw it, my heart was absolutely broken.
At Scout Camp, remember?
Yeah. I was at your scout camp. My heart was broken, and then I got really scared. Like it had this whole thing of emotions where I was like,
It deals with grief.
it's so much.
I
And
can tell you, for the longest, for like 2 years, I could not go close to being underneath the bed. I'd have to jump over it.
Absolutely.
Yes. But he was King was very involved with the filming process. He worked with the director Mary Lambert, like very close with her. And the only there's a couple weird things about this movie, but it is so effective in horror. Basically, you bury something that has died or someone that has died, and it comes back to life, but it doesn't come back the same, and that's why it's terrifying.
Nothing ever comes back to sight.
Yes, the soil of a man's heart is stonier. But then the Ramones
Yeah.
decided
love
to do the song Pet Cemetery, which I like that song, but when it plays over the end
Doesn't
credits of this
quite
movie,
fit.
it does not fit.
It's a whole 80s thing, though.
Yes.
It's kind of like Bollywood. You're like, let's like Slumdog Millionaire. Like, this is the saddest story. Okay, let's all get up and dance.
I love that movie. So yes, Pet Cemetery is my number 5. It is directly influenced. One of my first houses I lived in was on a busy road as a married guy with kids.
Yeah.
Was on this busy road, and the whole time,
careful, kids.
When the semi trucks would drive by, I would freak out and be like, "Ah, where are the kids?"
Oh.
So there you go.
Kent?
1408.
Hey,
So a man who specializes in debunking paranormal occurrences checks into the fabled room 1408 in the Dolphin Hotel. So this is a movie that gets better each time I watch it.
I
And
need
you
to
wouldn't
watch it
think
again.
so. But it's an aggravating movie where this guy seemingly just can't win. And I'm going to leave it there. But John Cusack, well past the prime of his career, it does amazing in this one.
Yeah.
Okay, there's one part where I actually teared up big
Yeah.
time. I was
Yeah.
just like, I am getting extremely emotional right now.
And that's, I think, good writing brings you into the mind of the character, and the mind of the character is feeling extreme happiness. extreme sadness,
Frustration.
horror.
It's a better hotel scene than Inception, right, Kent?
Nope, that is not true. But yeah, 1408 is my fifth favorite.
Okay.
My fifth favorite would be Carrie.
No, the original?
The original was
1978?
Sissy Spacek.
Yes.
I think, that she was perfect for that role. And her mother is one of those ones you're just like...
I don't know, Nicole, by bringing that up, they're all going to laugh at you.
I honestly think it's one of the best adaptations. I mean, you feel for her, and you're just like, when she gets her revenge, you're kind of happy and terrified at the same time.
All right, Joel, number 4.
My number 4 is It. I included both the 1990 version and the 2017 version. I have not seen part 2 yet because I was saving it for this.
Yeah, are you saying It Chapter 1 on both sides?
Well, the thing about It, the original It, the 1990 miniseries, it was 2 episodes. It was set in 1960. In the remake, it's set in 1989, and I was perfectly fine with that.
Yeah.
I think both adaptations are adequate because what I think this really did well, and you said this, Kent, this introduced us to the world of Stephen King. It was I wouldn't say family friendly because it's kind of horrific.
Yeah.
But it was a TV PG. It literally says TV PG adaptation of a Stephen King novel and made us go, whoa, who's this guy? He's really scary. I want to know more about him.
Yeah. You relate to this summer with these kids.
Yeah. And this cost $12 million to make the 1990 one, which was double the price of normal TV movies at the time. Tim Curry, absolutely terrifying as Pennywise, just perfectly horrific. This was kind of a King renaissance because he kind of had a bunch of adaptations and kind of died out. This came back, and this TV movie was like one of ABC's biggest hits. They had 30 million viewers, I think, throughout its 2 parts. And then they started adapting other stuff after that again.
Oh, nightmares.
So, It, my number 4 favorite adaptation.
Kent?
My number 4 is The Shining. I think it's a horror classic. I don't think it's overrated whatsoever. It's not as scary as people say it is, but it sticks with you.
It has its moments.
It sticks
Creepy. It's
right
tense. It's confusing.
there. Yeah,
Yes.
and
Like
Jack
in an
Nicholson.
off-putting way.
Off-putting?
Like
Well, I think it's kind of meant to be.
yeah, it keeps you off balance and in a good way.
And it's kind of a sad story too, because you want everything to work out, and this dad takes this job at this abandoned hotel in the middle of winter, and things go downhill from there. But you're like, can't this family just like live in peace?
Would you take a job like that, Kent? Taking care of a hotel through the winter?
I'm way too much of a scaredy cat. So much. And unless I had a big wheel and I was going through the hallways. Nope, I'm good.
Yeah.
Big wheel. Nicole?
That kind of sounds fun.
Yeah.
What are
Number
we on?
4?
Number
four.
4. The Mist.
Yeah.
I like it because it's straight and to the point, and the psychological way of how people act in a situation. That's what's terrifying
Totally.
to me. It's just like, because you always know there's that one person that's going to overreact, and you're just like, can we just feed them to the wolves literally right now?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's always the know-it-all.
Yep.
And of course, you always feel like they are the ones that only have to be listened to. And it's just the whole situation. Like you said, like the Dawn of the Dead, and you're like, what's going to happen here? Like 30 Days a Night, when I was talking about, what would you do in this situation? That's the whole thing, is like, which character would I be? Oh, I'd just be taking
Would you be logical, emotional, religious?
And
in
if it
this
weren't for
case?
the gag ending, it probably would have ranked higher for me.
Yeah, I would.
Right in the middle.
I would just get the Oreos and be like, you guys go and figure it out.
Joel, what's your number 3?
My number 3 is Misery.
All right.
So this one, like we said, an author gets in a car crash. He's nursed back to health by this woman, his number 1 fan. And this one is directed by Rob Reiner, who to that point had done like Spinal Tap.
Yeah.
I think maybe. And he also did Princess Bride.
up to 11.
And when Harry Met Sally, A Few Good Men. Like, he has really good movies he's done. This one, surprisingly clean. Like, the clear play's not going to cut out very much on this, because it really is just one brief instance of strong language. And then the rest of it's just kind of
It's also
eeriness.
an Academy Award winning.
Yes, it is. It is the only film based on a Stephen King novel to win an Oscar, and that was Kathy Bates, who won Best Actress.
well deserved.
For her portrayal as Annie Wilkes.
I don't think she'll ever live that down, though.
Yeah.
It's such a mesmerizing performance, and the movie is so well done, and it's so simple too. I really enjoyed this one, and I think that, and it's funny too, because like they were trying to get a big star attached to this, so they actually offered the role to William Hurt twice.
Really? Okay.
Then Kevin Kline, Michael Douglas, Harrison Ford, Dustin Hoffman,
James
Robert
Caan's nice.
De
Nothing to
Niro,
short
Al
at.
Pacino, Richard Dreyfuss, Gene Hackman, Robert Redford. Warren Beatty was attached to the role, but then he wanted a bigger, like he didn't want his character to be so passive, and he ended up doing Dick Tracy. And then for Annie Wilkes, it was going to be Angelica Houston or Bette Midler who were offered the role.
It worked out.
But it was the writer, William Goldman, who said, Kathy Bates, this unknown actress, let's go with her.
Wow.
And good on him, because Misery is horrifically awesome.
What I find ironic is that this was written in 87, and almost the exact same thing happened in 99 when he got hit by the car. You're just like, what if he went off into, because he got hit,
Yeah.
and he's off to the side of the road with someone
Nurse
else
Back
found him.
by his number one fan.
Yeah.
Kent, your number 3?
Dr. Sleep.
Wow.
This is the sequel to The Shining, which he wrote 35 years after The Shining. So it's a now adult Dan Torrance must protect a young girl with similar powers from a cult who preys on children with powers to remain immortal.
I haven't seen the movie.
Basically, these
I've
are
seen the
like
movie,
Shine vampires. This movie doesn't feel like The Shining. It feels more like a kind of a road trip adventure against vampires.
It's Ewan
Well, that sounds
McGregor
fun.
in the main
Ewan
role.
McGregor.
Yeah.
And the movie is great. I expected nothing going in. This came out 2-3 years ago, and it is actually great. There's a 2.5, I think it's 2.5 hours, so it's a long movie. Or there's a 3-hour director's cut, which is better. But I devour this movie. I like it better than The Shining, actually.
Wow.
Because I haven't seen the movie, but the book took it. It
The
was
book was boring.
yes.
The movie's better than the book.
So how was what's her name? The Hat.
Amazing.
She's good.
It's Rebecca Ferguson who plays Rose the Hat.
Oh,
and she's amazing.
Rose the Hat. There you go.
I thought she was Blaine the Train.
Blaine the Train.
Yeah,
Who's
there
the
you
real
go.
big pain. Let's see. My number 3 has already been mentioned. 1408. I love that every single one of my emotions were played in that, and the only gore that you see in it is in photos, black and white photos.
That's a PG-13 one.
Yeah. And it's basically John Cusack. Samuel L. Jackson's in it, but for a very brief moment. And having John Cusack just play as one person in this interactive room is, I thought he did a great job myself. So
So good.
And Joel, number 2.
My number 2 favorite Stephen King adaptation is Stand By Me, 1986. So the novella The Body was one of the 4 stories in different seasons. So it's just based on that. He didn't have a lot to do it. Once again, directed by Rob Reiner. So I
Okay.
have these 2 Rob Reiners in a row. This one is rated R for lots of language,
Yeah.
but that's about it. It doesn't have any like sassy stuff or any real major
Bloated
violence.
bodies?
Well, but I mean, no like on-screen
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
But the whole point of this movie is this group of friends hears about this kid around their age who got hit by a train, and so they go set out to find the body and to be the heroes to find it and let the police know about it.
Yeah.
And it's this kind of road trip movie, but not without a car. What do you call
it's
that?
kind of like a coming of age
Coming
story.
of age, yeah.
But I watched this so many times as a kid, and it greatly affected me. Like the part, kind of spoiler alert, I guess, where they find the body was one of the most emotional parts I've had as a kid. Like
Yeah.
it was just one of those defining emotional moments.
Well, probably because when you
Bawled.
saw it, you were almost the same age as those kids.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And this
And so
reminded
it's
me of
relatable,
me and my
you know?
friends would go hiking in the forest behind our house all the time, and I had this very strong connection to this because we had the one who's the friend who's a little more rambunctious, the one that was kind of the father figure.
Right.
Like I had these friends. And granted, I had a much better upbringing than most of the kids in these movies.
And no bodies in the
My
woods.
parents loved me, but it was like the whole point of this. This whole point
she
of
loves
thing is like, they're excited to go on this adventure, and they kind of forget what the purpose is. And when they finally see the body and they realize kind of the reality of it all, the world kind of comes crashing down. And it was the same for me watching the movie as a kid. And Stephen King has said that he said this to be the first successful transition to film of any of his works. And in fact, after he watched it, he excused himself. He watched a screener and he excused himself for like 15 minutes and composed himself and came back and said, "That's the best film ever made out of everything I've written up to that point." He said, "You captured my story." And I love that he was able to do that. By the way, they changed the name because they said The Body sounded like a bodybuilding movie or like
Yeah.
a sexy movie. And so they were like,
Well, and
or,
it gives it
or
away
like a
as well.
Stephen King horror movie.
Yes.
And it's not. But Stand By Me, if you didn't know, Will Wheaton, River Phoenix, Corey Feldman, Jerry O'Connell, Kiefer Sutherland, like a good cast here. But it's actually a Stephen King adaptation.
All the tiger beats from the
Except for Jerry O'Connell at the time. It took him a while.
Kent?
He made it.
The Mist.
The Mist.
I freaking love The Mist.
I
See,
bet
I
you do.
don't-
Unabashed
I bet you
love
do.
for The Mist. And the ending just hits it out of the park.
Don't
It
like it.
becomes a great B science fiction movie with a little bit of blood and guts and this thriller, this paranoid thriller that becomes unforgettable. And in Joel's mind, a horrible,
Yes.
knock the wind out of you ending. But for me, it's something that I'm like, why would you do that to my heart?
That's
I'm
how I
so
feel.
proud of you movie because it's directed by Frank Darabont, who's done other great Stephen
Walking
King stuff.
Dead. He was the creator of that.
And honestly, and I own this movie, and watching it in black and white also feels cool because it gives you a Twilight Zone vibe.
Mm-hmm.
And
black and
honestly, the creatures look better in black and white. Believe it or
a
not.
little
makes
corny
sense.
in color.
But I love this movie. And Joel and I argue about it all the time.
Yeah.
But I've probably seen it 5-6 times.
I
Because
don't know
it
if I'll
was a
watch it
shorter
again.
movie too, so
Yeah.
isn't it?
It's just fun.
Okay.
Fun.
It's fun.
Fun. Is it fun to get kicked
Look.
in the crotch, Kent? In the emotional crotch?
Look, there's like killer spiders. Hold on. What did you just say?
Nothing.
Hold on. We need to
Emotional
stall there for a
crotch.
second.
That should be the title.
Family friendly.
All right, Nicole, what do you got?
My number 2's already been mentioned, and it's Misery.
Oh, yes.
Sorry, we keep stealing yours.
Oh, that's fine. That's
Yeah.
fine.
Well, if
you
we
know.
all agree that it's in the top 5, that speaks to
I
I
the
didn't put
movie.
it in the top 5.
You didn't?
Nope.
Wow.
I love it. I love it.
Wow.
I
It's on my
just
top five.
think
missed it?
that that Annie, like I said, Annie Wilkes is just so relatable, and that's what's scary to me. Is just like, oh, she just looks like my next door neighbor.
Yeah.
Oh, not relatable for you.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, good.
I understand where she's coming from.
Yeah.
Watch out, FanX folks.
I do work for the post office. We do go
That's-
crazy.
All right,
So
Joel,
good.
what is your number 1?
What is our number 1?
Are we all picking the same one?
No,
Nicole.
mine's already been mentioned.
Oh.
So is ours.
Well, kind of mentioned. My number 1 is The Shawshank
It's
Redemption.
the Shawshank Redemption.
That is a good one.
Okay.
Oh, it's not yours.
Oh, it's not her.
Wow.
The
It's not-
Shawshank Redemption, if you don't know what it is, 2 imprisoned men bond over a number of years, finding solace and eventual redemption through acts of common decency. This is one of those Slumdog Millionaire kind of movies where it puts your emotions through the ringer. Like you are just, you were devastated at parts.
A lot of it's grim.
But then it gives you hope. It keeps giving you these glimmers of hope. And so you go through the ringer, but you come out on the other end clean and just feeling hopeful.
Yeah.
And
I like how you put that.
little reference to the movie there. And this stars Tim Robbins,
out
Morgan
clean.
Freeman. And I thought everyone had seen this movie. I thought everyone had.
On TNT, at least.
My wife has not seen this movie.
Hold on.
What?
Zach?
I still haven't seen it.
Oh my god!
I'm so sorry.
You're the third person I've met since doing the
sorry.
research for the
You're
show.
all bacon.
But
Still
I mean,
on my shame list.
Shawshank Redemption has had like so. I mean, Family Guy did a whole thing on it. The Simpsons did it. Robot Chicken. Everyone. So you basically know the whole story of it. But
But I don't want to
It's the
spoil it here, though.
performances. The script
don't.
is so good.
Because this is one of those movies that I feel like everyone should watch at least once a year.
Really?
Because it's one of
Once a
those,
year.
It's one of those soul cleansing movies where you get to the end. Because I love when good things happen to people in movies, like the people that deserve good things to happen to them. Good things happen. Now a lot of bad happens.
Definitely.
a lot of bad happens. But when the good things happen, I just feel so good. Like there's a scene pretty early in the beginning. This guy is put in prison for a murder that he didn't commit, and so he just feels out of place there, and he does not fit in. And then when he finds a way to fit in, it is one of my favorite moments in cinema. And the way this is filmed, so well done, where all the camera shots are very claustrophobic, and you see basically walls the whole time. And every time you get a glimpse outside the prison, which is rare, it's like this. Oh, it feels so relief.
Yeah.
when you see it.
whenever I think of Tim Robbins, that's exactly where I go to.
As you should.
And
Speaking of that, by the way, Tom Cruise, Tom Hanks, and Kevin Costner were offered the main role but passed on it.
Wow. Okay.
Tom Cruise actually attended table readings of the script, but he didn't want to work for the inexperienced director, Frank Darabont.
Oh,
So,
Oh, and he made a masterpiece.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As much as I love that, my number 1 adaptation, we've already talked about it, was Pet Sematary.
Oh, okay.
Because that's one I watched over and over and over again when I was younger. And
That's Scout Camp. I know.
Yeah.
it's and I don't know if I should give a spoiler, but here's a little fact about the movie. It is the very last movie to ever show a kid being killed in the U.S. So I don't know. I mean, so it's the very
Everything
last.
else
There
has been
had to have been out
No,
there.
Yeah.
implied
There's
since
movies
then.
that have applied it, but never showed it.
Yeah, you don't see Anakin taking kids out with the.
But you,
Well,
it's
the
a
director,
plot.
the director's cut.
Yeah,
You
No,
see the director's cut?
It's like a droid walks in front as it happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so that's one of the, I don't know. It's one of those movies that always stuck with me. And then when I read the book, it was very similar. And
Okay.
I
Hey, that made my top 5. I'm fine with that.
Shawshank is amazing.
But Shawshank didn't even make your top 5.
No, I love it, but it's one of those ones. It's like, oh,
Andy Dufresne. But I do feel like I'm in good company, though, because in 2016, Stephen King said his Shawshank Redemption and Stand By Me were his two favorite adaptations of his work.
Yeah.
And those are my number one.
But
Number
like
two.
Zack said, Bad Opinion by Stephen King.
But at least I feel like I'm in good company because it's about him. This episode's about him.
Oh yeah, it's a tribute show. Okay, fine.
Oh, man. So there you go. There's our top 5 adaptations. We hope that you...
We hope you're able to follow us.
Yes.
We try to keep it as simple as possible.
We try.
Sorry.
But thank you, Nicole, for being here. We appreciate
thank you for having me.
bringing us, tipping the scales a little bit into the Halloween direction.
Oh my gosh, I could have just taken 2 hours to talk about Dark Tower.
And we did.
And we did.
You can see it on the uncut version that we have at patreon.com/Baconsale, or at least the uncut version where you can hear all sorts of conversations that didn't make it to this cut.
Oops.
But let us know if you're a fan of Stephen King, what your favorite adaptations are, what your favorite books are, and if you're not, if this piqued your interest and that you may be checking out some of his movies or his books. Let us know on Facebook, let us know on Twitter, let us know on Instagram. We'd like to hear from you. Nicole, anyone you want to give it a shout out to or anything you want to plug?
If you want to talk Stephen King, I'm always open. So just Google Beatles Diva, and that's me.
Beatles Diva. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Bow down to Beatles Diva.
Wow. I remember that. I remember that song. But before we go, we'd like to give some love to our patrons, including Shannon West, Sean Sandquist, Rocky and Steph.
Hey.
Plot Twist Media, Lady Terry A. Finley, Jennifer Kukowski, Glow Clin Daniel, Chris Strout, Braden Winterton, Bacon Council Member Wannabe Kyler, Babs, Allison Gall, Alicia Bass, and Adam and Rachel Crump.
Woo-woo.
We also have the Bacon Council, which includes The Shadow, Stephen Ross, Ryan and Marley Farron, our favorite couple of Madsons, Nick Knack 40 Wax. Hey, that's you.
Hey.
Mats, Chris Anderson, Her Royal Highness Jessica Terry, and Reverse Listener. Thank you so much, patrons. We really do
Love
appreciate
you,
it.
patrons. Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you. Thanks, Nicole.
Yeah.
But if you
Love
want to,
you.
but if you want to find me, you can find me at 76 Joel. You can find me performing Quick Wits. They perform every Saturday night at the Midville Performing Arts Center. For more details, go to qwcomedy.com or go to the Quick Wits page.
If you want to find me on Twitter and Instagram, it's at Kenny3DD. If you want to read my movie reviews, it's ShowtimeShowdown.com.
If you'd like to connect with me, you can do so on Twitter and Instagram at Tumbling Mustard. But more importantly, make sure you're following Baconsale on social media so you can play along with the Stephen King fun. Go ahead and like that Facebook page and then stop by at Baconsale on Twitter and Instagram. While you're doing that, go to tpublic.com/Baconsale where you can get yourself a shirt. Please, we'd love for you to be a billboard. Go for it. And if you like what's going on here and you want to support the show further, go to patreon.com/Baconsale. You can get fun, extra content, including, like Joel already mentioned, the uncut version of this show, which was a journey. And we would love to share that journey with you.
Hey, look, Zach's here.
Hey, Zack!
Patreon.com/Baconsale.
So until next time, thank you, listener. We're your number one fan.
And I apologize in advance if I get a little excited. It might be a little gory.
Nirvana Kadabra.
There's a lady in the room.
Oh, go.
Never read a book in my
Which
life.
book?
But then in my 20s, I'm like, I want the nightmares.
And the psychic has a connection to a giant sea turtle that's holding up the entire earth. And I'm like, wait, okay, hold on.
What's
And
this?
Cujo was his name. Oh.
Cujo.
He doesn't pants people at classic skating.
A lot of torn flesh, I guess you could say.
Wow.
Getting right into
He
it.
could have just said murder. So does blame the train mainly stay on the plane?
I'm just over here waiting to see and
Yeah.
make this relevant for everyone. Go
Oh,
on,
I will.
Nicole. I'm still waiting.
In the dark.
Zach, are you following along?
Not even a little bit.
What happened to the children?
This is where it gets complicated. This is where
This is where it gets complicated? You're talking about
The riddle train.
laying the train and a bear holding a
Dr.
beam?
Doom with this golden snitch. You just took a train that was asking you riddles.
How many demons arrived in your town?
Philosophical side, I guess.
Philosophical?
Yeah, there you go. Thank you.
I like philosophical.
And it's a short book. It's maybe 400 pages. Short for Stephen King.
Short.
Let's get negative.
All right.
Yay!
There are these meatballs from space. But when you're stuck in between time, these space meatballs, they want to
Yes.
chew you up.
Here's Sub-Zero. Now Plane Zero. You guys know The Goonies?
Yeah.
He directed the making of The Goonies. Zach got it.
Hey, Zach. Zack's here. Zack's here. Zack's here. Hey, Zach. I missed you.
I want my cake.
Zach's back in the show.
I like
guys.
the show. Yeah.
No, the
Stephen King.
The synopsis.
Nerdish boy.
It's
Car?
a possessed
I love
car.
It.
but you don't survive the toilet.
It's super tacky.
Been there.
It shoots out sodas at their heads.
And yes, this is awesome. We're getting away with so much.
Piercing your
we get it.
lungs and stuff.
We get it. The eyeball popped out in the mosh pit. We get it.
Yeah.
Hey guys, I saw this one in the theater.
Yay!
Hey, Zack. Zack's on the show.
Zack's here. Yeah.
There are these people out there,
Crazy
unfortunately,
fans. Number
that just
one
take it all
fans.
too far, as we know with Baconsale.
Whoa.
How am I supposed to be scared of ruffles?
But when he,
Where are the kids?
I've said very little.
why would you do that to my heart? I'm
not
so
my fault.
proud of you, movie.
Fun.
It's fun.
Fun. Is it fun to get kicked in the crotch, Kent? In the emotional crotch?
Look.
Get out of the weeds, nerds.